In this video, I'm going to break down athlete nutrition, specifically how to use nutrition to go from a JV player to getting drafted and what that looks like for a guy to gain 20 pounds on a program, where the missing pieces are when guys usually come into our program and what we're looking at, and then what changes we're going to make. So, this is Josh Tiedemann, and it's been a little bit since we've worked with Josh, but Josh was the first guy that came into the program that really had a big change to his career. Went all in on his development. We're not responsible for everything and for a lot of his development, actually, because we were taking care of his nutrition, his recovery, his supplement protocols, but he was training at a great facility, right? We were not in charge of his strength training program or his baseball development, but we were responsible for helping him put on 20 plus pounds. And so when Josh came in to the program, like a lot of guys, his family was health focused, right? Eating super clean, eating really healthy, because that's what they thought was going to be the biggest thing for him to be focusing on, which is important, right? We need quality. We can't just be eating junk all the time or dirty bulking. But when we're too focused on that and we're never getting in the amount of calories that an athlete needs to gain the muscle mass, we're not going to have the results that we want, right? There's a lot of healthy guys that are riding the bench or not achieving the results that they want. And so going from an undersized freshman playing JV to a grown man by the time he was a senior in high school, putting on over 20 pounds, he obviously had great genetics. But he was eating really healthy, protein focused when he first came into the program, and he was undershooting his carbs probably by like 50%, right? A lot of guys, when they come in, they might have a big focus on eating healthy and eating enough protein, but a lot of the times we're really significantly under eating carbohydrates. So nobody really takes that back to muscle building. But carbohydrates are muscle protective, meaning you can honestly get away with less protein if you have enough carbs, and if you're going into a muscle building phase to be in a calorie surplus. You don't need to eat 2 grams of protein per pound of body weight, right? Any more protein, probably beyond 1 gram per pound of body weight. So if you're 200 pounds, 200 grams of protein. Maybe slightly higher than that, right? Up to 1.2, maybe 1.5, that's pushing it. We don't take most of our athletes up that high. It's usually 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight. And for some guys, we might take that down lower end to 0.8, because when you have the other macronutrients, carbs and fats, especially carbs, if you've got enough carbs in there, which is what high level athletes need, if you are training intensely 2+ hours a day, your body's relying on carbs for that. And so most athletes are shooting themselves in the foot by not getting the most out of their training, not getting the most out of their recovery, and not building as much muscle mass, because carbs are the limiting factor. And so we had to take his carbohydrates up. We still wanted to have an emphasis on eating healthy, but frequency was one of the biggest things that we focused on right off of the get-go, right? We needed to focus on frequency of his food, getting in more consistent snacks, meals, and getting in more of those calories earlier on in the day. If we're starting the day off without getting a big chunk of calories in, for one, you just went, hopefully, 8+ hours of sleeping without getting a ton of food in. And you're also going into a phase of the day where you're catabolic. Are you breaking down muscle after a night of sleep? You're not in anabolic muscle building mode. So we want to get you snapped out of that as quickly as possible with hydration, calories, getting your amino acid pool, which is just, protein. Your body doesn't store protein, so the available amino acids that are broken down from protein, we want to start getting that replenished and getting you back into an anabolic state with calories. If you're skipping breakfast and you're training several hours per day and you just went 8 to 12 hours without eating, you're not going to build muscle mass. Guys, it just is the way it is. Look at bodybuilders, right? The biggest, strongest people, you're not trying to be a bodybuilder, but they eat every 2 to 3 hours. There is a method to that madness, all right? And also for younger athletes that are undersized, it's going to be really, really hard to get in enough calories if you're just trying to cram that all into 3 meals. And what we notice with a lot of guys, again, coming to the program, you feel like you're doing a lot of work, that you're eating a lot of food, but you're probably trying to cram it into one big meal, right? And smaller meals or snacks throughout the day. Or maybe 2 meals that are just leaving you super full, but you're still not ending up anywhere near the calories that you need to consume to actually put on muscle mass. It's a pretty simple equation, guys. You need to be in a slight calorie surplus for the scale to start moving. All right, you might feel like you're eating a lot of food. Every guy that has a fast metabolism or genetic anomaly that comes into the program, they feel like they're doing a lot of work. They feel like it's just impossible to do it. When we start looking at their diet, they are usually 1,000 calories below where they actually need to be. And so the cool thing with that is that it doesn't have to look like too much extra work to start out with. We always start with guys when they come to the program of getting an idea of what's going in, right? Exact foods that they're intaking over the course of several days, either by tracking it or just uploading pictures into our program so that we can look at, okay, here's actually what's going on. Human beings are just terrible about guesstimating their intake, right? You're never going to have an accurate idea, an accurate reality of how many calories you're consuming if there is no data, right? You're probably way off of the mark. I do this for a living, and I still have to track my food, right? Because every time I get off it and I wonder, why am I not making certain progress? And then I start tracking, it shows up, right? We're just not great at estimating certain things. You forget about certain things. You might under or overestimate the actual portion size of things. And so once we actually get a clear idea of what's going into your body over several days, and then looking at that over the course of a week, because you might be doing great Monday through Thursday, Monday through Friday. But then the weekends are the days where you're slacking off because you sleep in, you maybe get a meal or two less. It doesn't seem like a big deal because it's only 2 days out of the week. You add that up over the course of a month, though, that ends up being like 30% of your month that you're not in a calorie surplus. That's going to be your Achilles heel, right? You might be doing all this work and feel like you're putting it in and eating all the time, but then you're getting sabotaged by 2 days out of the week that adds up over time. 8 days out of the week that, 8 days out of the month where you're not actually in a calorie surplus could be the thing and the difference between a surplus or maintenance or even a deficit with you losing weight, right? And unfortunately, like your effort into this does not make a difference if it's only over the course of a few days. We got to average this out over a long duration amount of time because your body doesn't have a clock that resets at midnight when it comes to calories and foods. And it doesn't matter how much you eat just in 1 day, 3 days, 5 days, if you've got a period of the week that's completely throwing off your schedule. Especially once you get into season, because you add in the dynamic of you're now burning more calories on game day, which increases your ceiling and your need for calories. Getting into that surplus is going to be even harder when you've got days where you're going 2 to 5 hours without eating a whole meal. And so when Josh came in, some of the other things that we focused on too were liquid calories, right? Getting in more liquids around his day that it didn't feel like he was having to do a bunch of extra work. Putting in place supplementation that added to those calories as well, right? Everybody's probably used a protein powder or a mass gainer at some point. Something that we really like utilizing is carbohydrate powders, right? These are used at the top levels of athletics and sport, and it's a sneaky way that we can get in calories for guys during practices, during games, during lifts, so we can get a steady trickle of calories as we're burning it off, guys, because it's pretty unrealistic that you're going to be able to eat whole meals to get all of your calories and all of your nutrients every single day, week, and month out of the year. Especially in season, guys, we've got to get the job done. There might be some eating out, right? With Josh, with his parents and his family, there was concern about him eating out or not eating healthy, clean food all of the time. Valid concern. There are certain points of the year, though, where, again, we've just got to get the job done and get in the calories, because if that's the thing that is the separator in your performance and your recovery, keeping the muscle mass on and keeping the performance up so that your velocity, your power, and your speed doesn't start dropping in season, then that's what we have to do. And it's not an all or nothing approach, right? I'm not saying that go and eat all of your meals at McDonald's, but if you're eating 80% of your diet from clean, quality food, let's say you've got a 4,000 calorie diet that you need to be on, for example, over 3,000 of those calories at 80% of it is going to be clean, quality food. We can afford for the other 20% to be a little bit easier, right? If we need to go get a takeout meal, if we need to go get a milkshake or fries or something that's going to top off those calories, we can do that as long as we're taking care of business on the quality end of the spectrum outside of that. And I'm not saying you just need to go get all of your calories from fast food, because again, you're probably going to just put on scale weight that doesn't apply onto the field, because again, all of this has to translate back to the field, right? All of our focus with Josh and his nutrition is how does this help you become a better baseball player? Yes, he got bigger. Yes, he put on a ton of muscle mass and got stronger, but it translated onto the field, right? You can put on a bunch of weight and it didn't do anything for you on the baseball field. And that comes down to a few specific things. That's not just random. One, got to keep your body fat percentage in check. One of the reasons that we get such great success with guys with gaining muscle mass but also getting faster is we're keeping their muscle mass the main priority and their fat mass low. We've noticed that getting guys and keeping guys at that 16% body fat or below is usually going to be that threshold with them not losing mobility and not losing speed. For some guys, the outside outliers, we might go up a little bit higher than that body fat percentage wise, but for the most part, staying relatively lean, keeping our weight gain under control, like not going too fast with the process because there is a ceiling to it, is how we ensure that we're going to improve athletic performance and all the things we want to improve on the field while getting bigger and getting stronger. So frequency with his meals, getting more calories in earlier, not just having a focus on protein all the time, right? Carbohydrates, fats, adding in a little bit more fun meals, supplementation from carbohydrate powders, and then we just stack that up over the course of several years, guys, right? This wasn't an overnight process. Yes, we try to go towards your goals as fast as possible. We want to gain that muscle mass. We want to get bigger, faster, stronger. And most guys, they want to do it overnight, right? And so I want to help you guys get there as quickly as possible. But here's the thing. Don't rush this process. Josh didn't rush this process. Freshman year to his senior year, right? This was a slowly developing thing. He didn't try to go from JV to getting drafted in 6 months. Far too many guys that we end up talking to, they try to rush this process, whether it's their development with their velocity and their exit velocity. They want to jump up 10 miles an hour in 1 month or even in 1 year. Guys want to go and put on 40 pounds. Inside of our program, we've got a 10-pound guarantee. We've just found that to be a very reasonable, realistic expectation that 90+% of guys actually accomplish that. And that's usually under-promising because we over-deliver. Majority of guys are going to fall within that 15 to 20 pound gain realm, but we have guys that gain 40 pounds, right, over the course of 4 to 5 months. We've got guys that put on 30 pounds, but we're not focusing on doing that overnight, right? You need to give yourself enough time for this, because if you try to rush the process, you can't rush biology. You can't rush things that are going to be outside of your genetics and your time frame, because if you're playing a lot of games and you live in a state where you're always active, it's going to take you longer. I'm sorry to break that to you, but you need to have a longer time frame for this, even though, again, we want to accomplish that stuff as quickly as possible. Josh accomplished everything that he did going from JV to then becoming Arizona Player of the Year his junior year. So within 3 years of really dialing all this in, his training, his sleep, his nutrition, his supplements, and then by the senior year, ended up getting drafted. But this wasn't an overnight process, guys. He made progress really quick. He had great genetics to be able to do that. He was going all in on every single resource, but it still didn't happen overnight, right? So again, have a desire and a drive to get to your goals as quickly as possible, but don't wait too long, guys. If you're the guy that wants to make a transformation like this, and you might be undersized, give yourself enough time frame for this, right? If you're 15, 16 right now, it's time to start, right? Don't wait until your senior year hoping that you get there, right? If this is important for you, like if you've got big goals like this of making baseball your career, putting on over 20 pounds, and accomplishing something like this, right? Guys, one, either have these unrealistic expectations where they're going to be getting drafted in his senior year and they're 30 pounds underweight and have zero metrics to show in front of scouts and colleges for that matter. And then you've got guys that are just kind of defeated, right? They don't think that they can make big changes because they have a high metabolism, because they are a hard gainer. And the reality is, guys, is that this stuff does happen. Guys do go from JV to getting drafted. Obviously, it's an outlier, and you have to be completely dialed in. But these are the kind of stories we want to be a part of at Game Time Nutrition. We want guys that are all in on their development, all in on their diet, their training, and they want that next level. If you just kind of want it, you should probably just be okay with mediocre results. But if you want changes like this, it's going to take some time. It's going to take a lot of dedication and focusing on it, and a bunch of little things. Like I just mentioned, we went over supplementation, sleep, we went over frequency, we went over macros in terms of carbohydrate stuff, and quality of his diet. All of those things fit into this puzzle piece, guys. It's not just going to be one thing. It's not just going to be, eating more chicken and rice more frequently. If that's working for you, amazing. Keep doing that. But if it's not, it's time to change the strategy. So if you want to hear more, guys, about how we can do this for you and wrap this into your life, your schedule, your eating preferences, so that you can have a transformation like this, click the link below. And if you found value in this video, guys, at all, please give us a follow, like, and share this video. And if you need any more structured guidance, you want to hear more about what we have to offer, click the link. You can schedule a call with us. We got to make sure that this would even be a good fit for you, and walk you through how the full systems work and how we've been able to do this with hundreds of baseball players, even guys that are hard gainers and don't think that they can have